Okay, everyone, welcome to the Art of TradeStation. I'm David Russell, VP of Market Intelligence here at TradeStation Group. I'm sharing some links in the chat. We will use the chat for questions and everything else. So I just shared 2 links, and I'm going to go ahead and start now. So today we're going to be talking about automated futures trading, the introduction, and some basic concepts. All right, so first, this is for educational purposes only and is not research or recommendation regarding any security or investment strategy. TradeStation Securities, Inc. and its affiliates do not provide legal, tax, or investment advice. Past performance, whether actual or indicated by historical tests or of strategies, is no guarantee of future performance or success. There's a possibility that you may sustain a loss equal to or greater than your entire investment, regardless of which asset class you trade: equities, options, futures, or digital assets. Therefore, you should not invest or risk money that you cannot afford to lose. Before trading any asset class, read the relevant risk disclosure statements on the important documents page found at tradestation.com/important information. TradeStation Securities Inc., TradeStation Crypto Inc., and TradeStation Technologies Inc. are each wholly owned subsidiaries of TradeStation Group, all operating and providing products and services under the TradeStation brand and trademark. You Can Trade Inc. is also a wholly owned subsidiary of TradeStation Group, operating under its own brand and trademarks. When applying for or purchasing account subscriptions, products, and services, it is important that you know which company you'll be dealing with. Please visit tradestation.com/important information for further information explaining what this means. Options trading is not suitable for all investors. Your account application to trade options will be considered approved or disapproved based on all relevant factors, including your trading experience. Please visit tradestation.com/important information for a link to the document titled Characteristics and Risks of Standardized Options. You may also obtain a booklet by writing to TradeStation, 8050 Southwest 10th Street, Suite 2000, Plantation, Florida 33324. Visit tradestation.com/pricing for full details on the costs and fees associated with options. Any examples or illustrations provided are hypothetical in nature and do not reflect results actually achieved and do not account for fees, expenses, or other important consideration. These types of examples are provided to illustrate mathematical principles and are not meant to predict or project the performance of a specific investment or investment strategy. Accordingly, this information should not be relied upon when making an investment decision. Okay, great. So before we get started, I wanted to just remind everyone that right now we are doing a special promotion for people opening futures accounts for as little to 25 to 75 cents per contract. So if you're opening up an account at TradeStation, and you go to one of the open account buttons on our website and you use the code FUTRA FZT by April 30th, you'll lock in a 50% discount on your brokerage fees. There's no account minimums. You have free access to the platform, and also you have access to the Globex value bundle, which are the key trading products that we're going to be looking at, like S&P futures. Also allows you to trade micro futures and things involving Bitcoin and Ethereum futures. Now, if you want to see the what I'm going along with, I shared a link with you guys, and the link is to a zip file. And if you open up the zip file, this is what you're going to see. The zip file contains 2 things in it. First, it contains this PDF I call the final Art of TS March 2020 Automated Future Strategies. This is basically just the slides I'm going through today, and the links and things are in that. So everything you're seeing on my screen is in this PDF. Secondarily, we have an easy language document. This easy language document includes a strategy, a customized strategy that I created for you guys. I'm going to be explaining later, but just so you realize, that is what you have there. So if you import that strategy, which I already have, so I'm going to hit cancel here, but if you import it, it will bring in something called moving average 2-line cross LE with midline. and I'll explain what all that means as we move along. Okay, great. So before we even get started, I want to very briefly just mention, if you go to the TradeStation website, where did my, trying to find where I had a, where is it? Here we go. All right, go to TradeStation.com and click on Insights. And this will bring you to the Market Insights blog I write. A lot of information that I have here. Every Monday, I do kind of a market preview. And in this, every Monday, you'll see this article about last week. But the part I really want to bring your attention to is something down here called Charting the S&P 500. I try and do some really kind of thorough analysis, looking at the market based on a series of technical and other considerations. I wanted to mention that there were a lot of bullish things have been kind of emerging under the surface of what looks like a very bearish market. And they kind of were playing out today. And I wanted to just, quickly mention that. One of the things that was really interesting to me is that we're starting to see some positive divergences. So this chart here actually shows that more companies were hitting highs even as the market went lower, which was very interesting. Let's actually look at this workspace, which we give to people in our masterclass. There's a couple of things I want to point out. This compares the S&P 500 market cap weighted to the equal cap weighted, and what we see is that the equal cap has been outperforming the market cap, which means breadth has been improving. Secondarily, we can see from this study that we have more companies that are above the 20-day moving average than are above their 50-day moving averages. And this line also shows the companies making new highs. It's pretty interesting that on Monday of this week, on the 7th, we had the most companies hitting 52-week highs since basically January 7th, even as the market was going down. It was pretty interesting. So we've seen some interesting bullishness beneath the surface. Another thing I want to point out, and I've written about this on TradingView, but if you actually look, there's an article here I had done about the Dow Jones Transportation Average. And this is on TradingView. It's an outside service that you can link up your account with. But I want to just briefly mention that this has been panning out, that we have basically seen non-confirmation of the bearishness in the overall market right now. So that is pretty interesting. The Dow Jones Transports is well above their lows of October, while the rest of the market are trying to hold on to those lows. There's this other chart here that I want to mention. Now, this is also in TradingView, but just there's three lines I've been watching. We basically have the low from October around 42.90. We have this low from back here in July that we've been, kind of trying to hold. It's pretty interesting. And then we have this other low all the way back here from June. And it's interesting to see how we're trying to hold these different levels. And today, the fact that we kind of held this level, which was from all the way back here in July, but it was also the low in January. It's interesting to see how the market is starting to try and hold, but at the same time, we have this bearish trend line coming down. So it's interesting to see the positive things beneath the surface that are taking shape in terms of the Dow. The Dow Jones Transports and things like that. Also, if you look at the S&P, we have an inverted hammer right here, which is a potential reversal pattern. So there are different things telling us here that we've reached a certain amount of extreme bearishness and we're trying to stabilize. And I want to watch to see what happens with this trend line coming down here. I think it's kind of interesting just to take a look at this. The last thing I want to mention is if you actually look at the rally all the way from March 2020 to here, the current level represents the first Fibonacci retracement. So I'm not the biggest fan of Fibonacci, but I try and look at everything and to kind of just see different things that are there. So it's just interesting to see that there's various things, suggesting here the market's trying to hold this kind of level. And it's interesting to see this trend line coming down as well. So I want to watch these different things and see what happens going forward. Okay. Now let's get back to this presentation. So today we're going to talk about, first of all, adding strategies to charts, then analyzing strategies and kind of optimizing them. Then how do you automate them so they actually trade money? And then finally, adjusting them using easy language. And that's when we're going to use the study, the free study I gave you. Can I get a zip file for 9.5? I'm going to share my email, drussell@TradeStation. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to email me. I cannot easily create the 9.5, but I can send you basically the text of the actual easy language code that you can then create yourself. Will there be a recording of the webinar? Yes, it will be on the YouTube channel. I could not open the page using your info, not sure why. Okay. All right, so first of all, when we look at this, we're going on this page number 6 in the PDF. All right, so what are automated trading strategies? These basically create buy and sell orders based on chart events and the status of existing positions. So chart event, go long or short if something happens, if a moving average cross happens, if a hammer forms, a whole series of things. And then the other thing is based on position status. So you can set something that just says exit on a stop loss, a profit target, even at like the time that you're in a trade. So those are basically the kind of the two things. One is based on things happening on the chart, and another thing is based on what's happening in your account. Okay, so what we can do now is we can basically start with a chart in TradeStation, and we can add a study to any, we can add strategies to any chart study on TradeStation. So let's go over now, and I have over here on my TradeStation platform, I'm going to close this. Remember, this is part of our masterclass. If you're interested, go to You Can Trade, and it's part of the All Access Pass. This is a special workspace for market breadth. There's a lot of interesting things with it. So I have basically created some workspaces for myself just to kind of keep this in order, to keep things organized. So what I actually have here is, I'm going to just start with this one. This is the S&P 500. Now, it's important when you're going to do this. Say we actually go and we go to apps, chart analysis. Okay. We're going to be starting with the S&P 500. Everything I'm going to do right now is for S&P 500, just to keep things simple. Now, we're going to use the generic symbol, which is @ES. Okay, so you open a chart study, you go to like ES, right? And we see this. Now, you want to make sure your time frame is set to 60 minutes to start, which I have mine set to. Now, the other thing that's important is you want to make sure that you have enough time. All right, so I'm doing all of this with 10 years of history. So you want to go to data, edit symbol, and I have mine set to 10 years back. All right, so you can just go ahead and do that. As you do that yourself, it could take several minutes to load. Just realize that. I loaded all this beforehand, so it'd be easy. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to hide this one for now, and we're going to work with this. We're going to add 3 different strategies here. So it's important also to realize that these are going to strategies do buying and selling. When you look at stock, like when you look at studies like moving averages, MACD, all those things, those are called studies. So studies plot the moving averages and the different indicators. Strategies trade them. So we want to think about including studies on the strategies, but these are 2 different things. We have to add the studies and we have to add the strategy separately. So go ahead and look at slide 8 in your PDF as I go back and actually I actually go and build this for you. All right, so the first thing we want to do now is we're going to add the strategy. So we go to the studies button. We're going to go to add strategy, and I'm going to add 3 strategies. The first one is called, now these are all included in your TradeStation. Moving average, 2 line cross LE. That means when 2 lines cross, it's going to do a long entry. That's the first strategy we're going to add. Then we're going to add moving average cross LX. Now that means when price, you see this is 2 lines. This is when the simple price crosses the moving average, it's going to exit the long. And then the other thing we want to add is stop loss. I'm sorry. Stop loss LX, which is long entry. Now I held down shift to add these 3. So just realize LE means long entry, LX means long exit, SE, short entry, and short exit. We're not doing anything with short, just to keep it simple. All right, so I hit OK. And now the thing that I've been messing around with is basically now remember, all this is hypothetical, and I'm doing this simply based on moving averages because this is something that I find to be the most simple and straightforward using an hourly chart. I want to say, let's buy when the S&P 500 has the 20-hour moving average rise above the 100. We're going to start with that, and then we're going to optimize it. So first, I like to move up my entry. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to say move it up. And this is my long entry. I have 2 exits, and I have 1 entry. And so first, I'm going to double click on this, and I'm going to change my fast length to 20. I'm going to change my slow length to 100. And then I'm going to hit OK. Then I'm going to change my LX, my cross, to 100. What that means is that if it pulls back and touches the 100, it will exit. And then I'm going to set my stop loss. Now, this is in dollars. All right, every point of the normal S&P E-mini futures is $50. I'm going to set it to 200. It's tight. It's basically, if it goes 4 points against me, it'll exit. We're just starting with this now. We're going to optimize it next. So we're just starting with some nice values. Hit OK, OK, OK. Now, there's another little trick really quickly. You're going to hit your head against this wall really quick. So I want to show you right off the bat. Go to properties for all. And now we need to change number of bars is studyable reference. It's only set to 50. All right. So I set the long to 100. That will automatically crash. Give me an error message. I'm going to just, for the sake of doing this, I'm going to set this to 600 just to make things easy. Hit OK, and I'm going to hit close, and it should put the strategies on. So you can see here that it has an entry and a stop loss. So it tried to do some entries here and got stopped out. All right, let me just actually go back and make sure I'm following my slide. All right, you know what I want to do next? All right, so here's the problem. You can see the entries, but you cannot actually see the moving averages. So now I'm going to go to studies, add study. I'm going to go to moving average. It's called MOV, M-O-V, 2 lines. Now I'm building this for you guys because doing this in, sharing the workspace itself, it's not really worth doing because we're going to make a bunch of changes to it. So moving average 2 lines, I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm going to do is I'm going to add the inputs. I want these to match the same. I'm going to add 20 and I'm going to add 100. Now for me, I like to use a gray line for 100. So I'm going to go to color. I'm going to change the slow. I'm going to change that one to gray, and the fast. Wait a second. The fast, I want to change that one to teal, and the slow, I'm going to make to gray. I already set the values, hit OK, boom. All right, so now you can see the 20 rose above the 100 and it bought, and then it got stopped out. The 20 rose above the 100, it bought, it got stopped out. So you see, that's not a very good strategy. But if you look at it over time, we scroll back, we actually see we had that was a profitable run right there. And there's some others. Okay. So did it make money or not? So I'm now going to go on to slide number 9. And we're going to go to this thing called strategy performance report. Here I mentioned the key things, like you want to make sure that you change the maximum bars back. That's essential, or else a lot of things are not going to work. And remember, that is on the first dialog box on the right, the properties for all. Data. That is where it's actually going to be setting your how many bars back, or how many. I just set it to years back because if we're doing back testing and analysis, we want to make sure that we're looking at a significant amount of time going back. Okay, now the third thing is data, strategy performance report. Now this is what we want to look at. This is the interesting thing. So all right, it had some winners and losers. Did it really make money over time? Well, let's find out. Let's go to data, strategy performance report, and now it's going to crunch some numbers, and it's going to tell us that this strategy would have made $40,000 in the last so many years, the last 10 years. And let's actually look at this equity curve, which is under performance graphs. You can see that this strategy started performing very well around December, around like June or August of 2018. I'm not sure exactly why, but at that time it started working. And this is one of the things you're going to notice. You're going to notice that at certain times, certain things work, and at other times they don't work. And this is why this equity curve is so useful, because you can see those times when it did well or it didn't do well. Okay. So now we want to optimize this. I'm going to just very quickly show this to you. If you actually jump ahead to slide 11, you can see the strategy performance report. Now, I did this like 2 weeks ago when I made the screenshot, so the numbers are not the same. But essentially what it's going to tell you is, you'll notice this only has long trades. I did no short trades here. It's going to tell me that it made gross profit of 109,000. It lost 69,000, about 40,000 profit. And then it'll tell you things like, for example, only 17% of the trades were profitable, but the average winning trade was $1,500, and the average loser was $200. So right off the bat, that is a good kind of performance. But still, we can do a lot better. I just made these numbers up, the 20 and the 100. Who knows? So now we're going to optimize it. So strategies are going to be optimized according to their inputs. We want to go to edit strategies, and then we want to double click on the double click or select customize, and then you're going to select the input and optimize. So you're going to set the minimum, maximum, and increment. All right. So what we're going to do now is let's go to studies, edit strategies. We see these. I'm going to go to this one. Double click on it, or I could also click on it and hit customize, same thing. And now I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here to optimize. Now I want to keep it as closed. You could change that. We don't want to mess with that. It could look at the high or the low, the open, there's different values for every bar. As you guys probably know, a bar has an open, high, low, and close. For the purposes of doing things like moving averages and stuff, we'll keep it simple by just going close and close. But we can optimize fast length. So let's now click on optimize, and it's going to say, what number do you want to start with? 0 through like 30. So I'm going to set it to like 0 through like, I think 40. It's going to go in increments of 2. I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to go to slow length. I'm going to hit optimize, and let's have it start at 50 and go to 150. I don't want this to take too long. Hit OK. So now this is set. It wants to optimize. I hit OK. Now I go down here. Same thing. I'm going to go click on this. Now this is where I'm going to run it, and then I'm going to show you what's actually happening. If you don't understand, this is set up so if it's long and it pulls back and touches the 100 hour, it'll exit. So this is long exit. I'm going to go to this. I'm going to go to optimize, set it. It'll go in increments of 10. It'll range between the 50 hour and the 150 hour moving average. And then finally, I'm going to go to the stop loss. I'm going to optimize that as well. I'm going to start like $100. Let's give a maximum loss of like $400. And let's actually have, instead of $20 increments, that's going to take too long because each point is 50 after all. So let's just set that to increments of 50. Because remember, it has to test all these different scenarios. If you go in bigger increments, it's going to go faster. So now I have all those set. And now you're going to notice once that's done, it will have a button called optimize. I'm going to hit optimize and it's going to start running. All right. So I'm not sure. This shouldn't take that long. It often will start off by saying so many tests and then it jumps ahead. It has like 13,000. I'm going to just keep going here. Let's go back to our slide. While it's running, let's move to the next one. So I want to actually show you as it was optimizing. Now I did this back on the 23rd of February. So these values are different because it's hard to always know. If you run these things on different dates, it'll start on a slightly different time, and then it will miss certain entries, and then it will enter at different points. So these numbers are not going to be the same. But the key thing is what we actually see here is that we see that we significantly increased our net profit. We have this thing called profit factor. Profit factor are your gross gains divided by your gross losses. The higher the number, the better. So we significantly improved our profit factor. Another thing that we did was that right, the percent profitable increased dramatically. The percent profitable went from 9% here to 24%. And then we also saw that the average losing trade went from $206 to $123. Our average winning trade got smaller, went from 8,700. So basically what would have happened was we would have probably lost a few big winners. But in the process, we lost a lot of losers. Losing trades went from 30 to 19. And winning trades actually, in this case, increased. So it's interesting just to see this difference. And one of the reasons why is that it did more trades, but somehow by changing this, what it actually would have done is it would have gotten out of losers more quickly, and then it would have ended up having more opportunities to have winners. Let's see if we finish running our optimization. Boom. And wait a second, did it? Nope, it's still running. Hopefully. Now, I'm surprised this is taking so long. I'm going to go on to some other things and we're going to come back to this. I thought it'd run quicker. All right. Now, the reason why I didn't want to share the workspace with you guys was because what's going to happen is it's going to come up with different values. When it optimizes, instead of having, 20-hour and 100-hour, it's going to change to like 40-hour and 120-hour. I don't know what it's going to change to. All these numbers are going to change. So the reason is I didn't want to share the workspace with you guys because we're literally changing the strategies before us. And then the thing is that the studies that I've included with the colored moving averages, those studies are going to change as well because that's what I set before. These things are separate. So you have to kind of change them separately. Now, this is one I ran earlier where the studies have been optimized. I'm just going to go ahead and show that to you. This is pretty much the same setup I had done before. If I go to edit strategies, here's what it did. It changed. If I look on this, you can see hopefully that instead of the moving average cross exiting at the 100-hour, it now exits at the 140-hour. It changed the long entry. Instead of the 20 crossing the 100, it changed that to the 25 crossing the 140-hour. And it tighten my stop loss from 200 to 100. So this is what happened when I optimized this. I'm not sure, probably a week or two ago. That's how it changed it. Still running. As it's running, let's go ahead now. And these are just some definitions of some of the key things you want to look at. These are values that pop up over here in this strategy performance report. Okay, so while that's running, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next part, which is actually turning on automation. I want to just tell you guys, you really want to play around with this and understand how it works and use a sim account before you actually start doing it with real money. There's all kinds of risk, obviously. So I just want to tell you that this is really for educational purposes only. And I want you guys to really be confident doing it and testing it. We have lots of roadblocks that we put up to make sure that you know what you're doing before it automates with real money. So one of the main things you can just do is make sure you have the little blue button for sim. You can see this is a simulated account I have. All right. So let's just go now to this other workspace that I have existing. And I'm going to go to studies, edit strategies. And then I actually go to this part here called automation. And you're going to see here that first I have to click this box. And then what we'll do, it will generate orders, but it will not actually execute them. And then you have to say automate. And then it's going to have this big thing saying you're about to automate execution. It's going to have some warnings. You have to agree to it. So I'll just, for this one, I'll say yes. And then confirmation, when it actually comes up, it's going to pop up a dialog box and say, this has triggered an order. Do you want to place the order? For it to work in a truly automated way, you have to turn that off. And then it's going to, again, make you agree. So this is something that is really going to, be kind of guarding you and protecting you. I'm going to just hit no. All right. I'm going to just go ahead and turn this off. So I just want you to understand how this works. Now, the next thing is, you'll notice this is ES. You cannot trade ES. You have to trade ESM22. Now, for analytical purposes, you cannot look at that because, this futures contract, 6 months ago, no one traded it. And I guess probably a year or two ago, it didn't exist. So it's important to realize that for your analysis, you want to use the generic ES. But when you actually go to automate stuff, you want to change, you have to realize that the, on the run symbol. And right now we're ESM, 22. I'm sorry, we're not ESM, we're ESH. I apologize. Sorry about that. We're in the March expiration. Next week we have expiration on Friday, quad witching. So basically just realize that when you're getting ready to automate stuff, here's where you're going to go to studies, edit strategies, then you're going to go to automate here. Okay. Now, another thing that you want to, think about doing is avoid trading the same symbol manually that a strategy is trading automatically in the same account. You can enter, maybe you want to trade S&P futures or something, and then you have an automated strategy. You don't want to trade the two in the same account because you can have your orders conflicting with each other. Okay. Another thing is most of these strategies are going to enter with market orders. Limit orders involve a lot more complexity, and we're not even going to get into them right now because honestly, it would take like a whole other webinar. But if you actually go to studies, edit strategies, and then we go to properties for all, and then you go to automation, there's a whole bunch of things here involving like limit orders. Say, for example, you're trying to trade something and say it creates a limit order and it says, I want to buy 10 contracts if it goes to 4,000 or something. Say it goes to 4,000, you only get filled on 5 contracts instead of 10. How do you handle that kind of scenario? There's all kinds of things like that. They get messy when you do limit orders. And that's the reason why there's a lot of controls here that you want to look at. I actually provide a link at the end of the PowerPoint to another webinar that was done previously that explains how to do all that. We're not going to get into that. For simplicity's sake and for something like ES, market orders tend to be the easiest and most effective. There's not much slippage in it. It's very liquid. So that is just something that you, that for the most part, it's going to be doing. Now, we have this thing called Trade Manager. Go to apps, and then you go to the thing called Trade Manager. It's hard to see this, unfortunately, probably on my screen. But you're going to notice it has 2 different tabs. I don't think I even have any positions in this account right now. This is purely for my demonstrational educational purposes. Let's try to make this bigger so you can see it. Anyway, this is thing called Trade Manager. It's one of the apps. You launch it up here in apps. This has 2 tabs you want to look at. Strategy positions. If one of your strategies has a trade on, it'll tell you. You can actually see I have automation set for this one on ESH right here, and it says that it's flat. It doesn't have anything on. If it had gone long or short, it would actually show you your position, your entry, your profit and loss, and all that. And then the other thing are your strategy orders. Some strategies create stop losses and things like that. There's more things that you might want to learn about having positions in place that I'm not going to get into in this webinar. But when you have things like exits and stuff, if you lose your internet connection or you have another problem, you might not have those orders. There's ways to handle orders, especially to make sure they go to the TradeStation server. And if you actually look at one of those other webinars at the end of the presentation, it explains those things. So just realize that there are potential risks of, if you lose your internet or something else happens, that you will not have a risk management in place. You want to just kind of realize that. But also realize that you can log on with the mobile app or something else and always override it. If you have something set as a stop loss or a long exit, it won't go short. You know, if you're out, you probably have all had this happen sometime with futures. You put on a stop loss, and then for some reason you forget it's there, and then the market goes down, and then you have this live order, and next thing you know, you're short. It's not going to do something like that. So just realize those are some of the things when it comes to order management and things like that. You want to look at your trade manager. You want to look at your strategy orders and your strategy positions. These are the two tabs that you're going to want to look at. All right, let's see if our optimization is done. Yes, it is. Okay, let's see what it did. Let's go to studies, go to edit strategies. And what did it do? It changed me to, oh, it's going to cross now at the 19. Remember, we started with the 20 and the 100. Now it wants to cross at the 18 and the 90. When the 18 moving average crosses the 90, it's gonna put in our stop the exit when it pulls back to the 150, not the 100, and it's giving us a stop loss. Instead of 200, it's giving us 350. So now let's go to our data strategy performance report, and now let's look at our equity curve. It's more impressive. And if we look at our performance summary, I didn't keep the before and after, but if you look, the percent profitable went from about 18 to about 25. And then if you went to the, I'm trying to look at some of the other things that would have, the profit factor actually didn't get better, but you know, it did. I'm just seeing now, these are all new numbers to me. You can see basically how it worked. The average winning trade is much bigger than the average losing trade. So you can look down, there's a lot more things to see, like how much time it's spent in the market, your maximum drawdown and things like that. So basically that's the basic way that you would do something like optimization. Okay. So one of the things I've noticed, and let's see if we can see this easily. I've noticed with my, when I've done this sort of strategy that it does, I don't like these entries, okay? This is something that I've noticed, I've seen happening. So what I've noticed, because I've done this, I've experimented a lot with these kind of moving average cross strategies. So I want to show you a way that I optimize this. And we're going to use easy language. Now is when you want to go in the zip file I sent, the strategy, if you go to it. And then, all right, let's actually show you now how to do this. I'm going to just go and add very quickly. Well, let's just go to edit strategies, moving average cross long entry. I can now click on where it says edit easy language, and it's going to bring up my easy language code editor. Okay. Now, if you want to change something, you go to save as, give it a new name. We're not going to mess with this one. Depending on what kind of automation you want to do, I'm doing this all based on the idea of moving average crosses. There's other things. When you look through, you have MACD, you have all kinds of things with pivots, Keltner channels. When you have one that you like and you want to work off of, what I suggest you do is you go to it the way I just showed you. You go to edit the easy language, and then when it comes up, then you save as and give it a new name. That way you're not going to mess up the existing one. All right. So I gave you guys one here. I'm going to just open a new chart study really quick. And I'm going to go to studies, add strategy. Now I gave you one that was called, sorry, what's it called? It was called moving average cross LE with midline. That's the one that you have the easy language for. If you imported the easy language document the way I showed you at the beginning, and I'll just really quickly, show you, I'm going to add this. This is what you get. I'm going to go ahead, and now remember, I have to go properties for all. I'm going to change that to say 600. I'm going to just change it to 1,000 for mine. Okay, hit OK. Puts it in. I also need to go and I need to add, well, I'm just going to hit OK. Now, the problem with this is you'll notice it doesn't show anything because I didn't give it any exits. There's only one strategy to do the entry. So let's just now go ahead and add, let's go to add strategy. We'll go to our same thing. We'll go to moving average, cross, long exit, and then the stop loss, long exit. We'll just add those. And when we optimized it, it came to 150. I remember that. And then this was optimized at $350. So we'll go ahead and add that. And now you can see it has some entries here. So let's actually go now to studies, edit strategies, and then we'll go to this one with the midline, and we'll go to edit easy language. So here's the easy language I wrote for you guys. This adds a midline length as an input and a midline as a variable to the existing moving average two-line cross. So what this does is, here's the thing I noticed as I looked at the performance of the moving average cross strategy. I noticed that when the market rallies, that it goes up to a high, and then it will very often chop around at the high and get some bad entries. And I noticed that it was often churning and trading too much. So if you go to strategy performance report, look at the performance graphs, I look at times when it had a bunch of bad trades, right? You can see here it had a streak of losers. And that was where? That was at June 23rd of 2020. Let's look back at that moment in history and see what happened. June 23rd of 2020. June 23rd, here it is. What do we see? We basically see that it chopped up here and it had all kinds of losses. See, so this is one of the faults of this approach. You'll get a nice rip like this. Now, this is just purely things I've noticed from my own observation. I look at these, I use a strategy performance report. I look for times when it actually started churning or losing money, and I say, what did it do wrong? And then I notice you have a good rally, and then the thing like chops at the highs, and it'll get a bunch of false entries. Like all these things will be false entries. So I said, you know what? And this is purely my approach. I said, you know what? I only wanted to go long in scenarios, like this. When it's down, when was this? This was October of last year. Had a nice pullback and it was low, and then it had a nice rip coming off. So how do we want to prevent, how do we want to capture that? How do we make sure that it enters here, but it doesn't enter up here, right? Like with these choppings, how do we manage that? So I added a thing that I call the midline. And what a midline is a much slower moving average. So what this thing does, it takes a midline and it uses a 200, for example. And what it will do is it will only enter if the slower moving average is under. So let's just add now a study. And let's just add moving average one line. I'm going to add the 200 moving average. I like that to be green. Okay. So now what it's going to do is essentially, wait, the other moving average was what? The other moving average was well, we look over here at our optimized thing. Oops, sorry. Go to studies, edit strategies. It optimized at the 90, okay, 18 and 90. So if I go now to edit strategies, for this new one that I just added, the one with the midline, I'm going to add 18, it was 18 and 90, right? Now it'll re-automate. Now, what it will do is, it will now only enter when it's under this midline. And what that will do is it will avoid a lot of chopping at highs. It'll still capture some of the, and for some reason here, I have to go back and actually look at this. This was something I purely did like 2 weeks ago as a kind of example. But here's a way that basically by adding a midline, it can allow you to overcome something that I noticed was an actual problem. I'm not even sure if this is even going to work as well. This is just something I wanted to show you guys really for educational purposes. See, it still performs pretty well. And if you look at it, I mean, it has, anyway, you can just see here from this performance graph that it still did pretty well. And the point of this is that I noticed something by using the strategy performance report. I noticed that it was churning near the highs. And I said, how do I prevent it from entering at the high? I came up with an idea. I said, I only wanted to buy when it is at the lower end of a swing. So I basically added this. I honestly think it's probably better to do a much longer. I use 200 here, but I think if we actually go to something like edit strategies and we want an entry, let's say like 1,000, because then you're not going to have something that's going to move so much. And let's just see strategy performance report now. Still performed well. Anyway, I wanted to just kind of show that to you. That was one thing that I noticed as an actual way to remedy a problem. So this is how you do that using easy language. It was relatively simple. What I actually did moving the easy language is first I added an input for the actual what do I want to use as my midline, and that will actually show up in the display right here when I go to edit strategies and I double click on this. It asks me what length, the midline length. It asked me that right there. And then once I added this as an input, then I need to add it as a variable, and then I need to calculate it as a variable. And then I just add one section right here. This is the original language. It simply says if the current bar is greater than 1, which basically means that it's not the first bar on the chart. The original study says if the fast bar crosses over the slow, then buy at the next bar on the market. And what I did was I just added if the midline is greater than the slow average, then buy. So I just added that literally by adding one little piece of code to the actual execution line, and then by also making sure that I added it to the inputs. I added it to the variable section, because the input is the number you give it. And then if you're going to have something as a variable, you have to define it. And then once you define it, you have to calculate it. And then here you can use it. So I explain it here in the comment section. You can look at that. All right. I'm getting some questions here before I move forward. Will you please send us the recording of the webinar? Okay, let me just look. Can you apply this same strategy to an indicator? All right, so now we're getting into the part I wanted to kind of just, let me just see. All right, the zip file was reshared. Good. It's in the actual, it's in the chat. There's a zip file. I'm just looking down the list. See if any more questions. What's the PDF you're talking about? In the zip file I shared, there's a PDF, and there's a PDF. This is a zip file. There's a PDF, and then there is the easy language document. The easy language document includes the indicator I was just showing you with the code, and then this document is the actual PDF of the PowerPoint that I'm sharing. This does not work with continuous unadjusted symbols. No, I don't. I've not worked with those unadjusted custom symbols, so I'm not sure about that. How do I get the PDF? I answered that. All right, now let me just tell you that this is a very introductory webinar. I want people to realize a lot of people sign up for TradeStation and they don't know that we have this built in. I wanted to just kind of get people started with it. I am not an expert in automation. There are a lot of other subtleties that you do want to get into and you want to work with it. I just wanted to show the kind of beginnings of things that can be done. It's important to understand how a lot of the different functionalities work, especially things like stop losses. And like I said, that things like the orders. Please do not consider this webinar an exhaustive sort of introduction or an exhaustive explanation of how to do automated strategies all the time. It requires a fair bit of study and analysis and kind of learning and knowing how it works. I just wanted to show you guys that a lot of people, they have TradeStation, they trade stocks and options, and they have no idea that this functionality is sitting right there for free, right there in their platform. And there's all kinds of ways you can customize it as well. You do not need an API to do fully automated trading. Can we do this in 60 or 5 minutes? Yes, you can. You can do this in much shorter term charts. You just go to time frame and change it, but then also just realize that everything I just showed you will be different. The different moving averages matter, things like that. This is now going to be, who knows what it's even going to pull up now, because these moving averages are all different. But yes, all you have to do is go to time frame and change it, and that will change for different time frames. All right, so these sessions I do once a month. They're always at 4:30 Eastern. If you want to see more, if you actually go to our blog, let's go back to tradestation.com. And you go to Market Insights. They are posted on Market Insights after. Go to Insights here off the TradeStation website. Go to Education, go to Platform, and then we have different webinars we've done. Jesus Nava also, I have his webinars as well. If you look at them, they're all just kind of posted here. I'm just trying to look at your questions. Some people debating things, which is great. You want to enjoy. How does rollover affect back test results? That is a good question, and I am not actually sure about that. Which is one thing you have to be careful of if you do something like oil, which rolls every month as opposed to ES. I don't know the answer to that. Okay, before we move forward, let me just mention, this was, all right, so when I actually was doing, like I said, I ran this about 2 weeks ago. When I changed the analysis to add the midline, when I did it, this is what it gave me. Now it's different now, but this is what I saw at the time. Basically what it did was it increased my profit factor. It increased the percentage of winning trades. Like I said, it traded way less, and as a result, it avoided churning at the tops. That was always my goal. As a result, it had just a better performance overall. It made less money, but it traded way less. And in many ways, that is a better strategy. You can think about things different ways. Let me just be clear. In a bearish market, these things don't work. Things work for a while and they stop working. There's all kinds of science and ways to find those things. And that's something that you guys probably have a lot of insights on as well. What I would just do also is I would mention to you that we have more resources. If you go to slide 17 in the PDF, we have these other videos done by Mike Burke a year or two ago that I'd really recommend you take a look at. He goes much more into depths of the ways you actually set these things up and manage them effectively. Also, if you go to on TradeStation, if you go to our trading app store, there's a place where you can actually buy strategies that will run. If you go to platforms and tools, trading app store, you can actually purchase and subscribe to different automated strategies here. Remember, this is another part of our company, and there's developers who run things here if you want to work on that. That's another thing. I want to just kind of get you guys started with this. And finally, I want to just very quickly go back and just let you know that, what is my platform? There's all kinds of ad strategy. There's all kinds of approaches here. You can have things based on, for example, patterns like hammer candlesticks. You can have things like, Keltner channels. Most things that exist as studies, or a lot of them, they have various kinds of strategies built as well. And the other thing I'll just say is you can take short strategies and you can use them for exiting only. So for example, I might go to studies, let's go to ad strategy. I might say like, short entry, moving average cross two lines, short entry. You can then go to okay. And then what you can do is moving average two line, here it is, two line cross short entry. You can change it from sell short to exit only. So you can use a short strategy as a selling of a long strategy if you want as well. So you can mess around and change some of those different things as you work with them. So I wanted to say, like, you can have things like MACD, you can have things like hammers, Keltner channels. A lot of these different things exist. Just to keep it simple, I just started by doing nothing except this moving average cross, which is a basic sort of approach that I think everyone can kind of get their head around easily. Can you see an optimization page with all the numbers? There is actually here, if I go back to this one, I go to strategy performance report. There is data. After I run the optimization, you can go to the strategy. I think I might have closed that window. There's a thing called strategy optimization report that also gives you details about the optimization that you can look into as well. And a lot of those things are covered in the other webinars. I only did long strategies for this one. You can mess around with it as well. Honestly, I've not found a lot of good short strategies recently. In a bullish market, a lot of the things I've looked at, I just have not been able to get them to work well on the short. But if you like that, it's not that difficult to do the ways I showed you. You can change them easily enough, and you can look for short entries based on different things. Can you trade options automatically? I believe you can, but you cannot do it with these strategies. You actually do that with indicators, which is something far more advanced and different. I keep having trouble enabling it. I'm trying to change the status to on, but TradeStation keeps setting it as off. You might, one thing I just mentioned is there was the thing when you actually go to studies, edit strategies, make sure that the properties for all, make sure you increase the maximum number of bars back to like 1,000 or something. It by default, I think it does 50, and then some of these things won't work that way. Does easy code editor code sit on the server? No, it's part of your TradeStation platform. It's on your computer if you had TradeStation installed. This, you can also go to apps, edit this easy language tool. Can you show that midline on the chart with a study? I did that. I'm just looking to make sure your questions. Hopefully you guys got the zip file. I'm going to share it one more time. Actually, looks like Manolo did. Thank you. Go ahead and email me, guys, if you have more questions. There are a lot of questions. I don't think I'm overlooking any of them. Can you have multiple strategies for multiple symbols? Yes, you would have each one running in different charts. The other thing I just want to mention is just realize that, I mean, this might be obvious, but just to be clear, is that the exits, each one of these things is a strategy. So you never run just one strategy, because if you have to exit and everything else. So just realize that each thing is a strategy, and in many ways, like your strategy, so to speak. I mean, you could code your exits into a single strategy, but a lot of the things we're looking at here, you're taking multiple strategies and putting them together, entries and exits, and each one is a separate strategy. So just realize if you actually look at your window and you say, here's my trading strategy, it's really not one, it's multiple. So just for the sake of understanding that. All right. All right, guys, I have to go. If you have more questions, please email me at drussell@tradestation.com, and I will do what I can to help you. It's great to talk to everyone. And don't forget to check out Market Insights. And also, don't forget the offer we have for people opening new futures accounts. And you might want to also consider our masterclass. I do several of those every month. Great to talk to everyone. And thank you so much for joining me.